Morning. How are we doing today? It's that time of the morning where we get that fire going, and we want to make sure it's all ready for our little chat. So, open up the catalytic, open up the draft, throw one log in there. Close everything down. Cool. Looking good. So, what do we want to talk about today? Oh. Is it real or is it Memorex? Let's see now. How about let's talk about the artifacts. See that knife right there? Yeah, that knife and that artifact over there. Isn't it amazing that the knife is the only thing real, plus the archaeologist brush right there in the other photograph. But the coin, it's actually not a coin. This was, that was the Jesuit seal for the in season 1. Both of those are season 1. The reason I'm talking about season 1 is I noticed that Discovery Communications is trying to make as much as they can off a treasure quest before I think things start to crumble once we're actually in court. Which, like I say, I guess the deposition is going to be the beginning of January in Maryland. Oh boy. It kind of sucks when you have to fly from Alaska, by the way. But just to give you some perspective of size, so this knife right here, this is the actual knife. That's the size. That's the relative perspective of the size of the knife in relation to the supposed debris left from the treasure chest at the end of season 1. So why is that important? Why is it about artifacts? Oh, and by the way, just a little historical. This is actually a kick-ass knife. People say, oh, why do you carry such a big knife? This knife, if you live in Alaska, remember, when you're fighting, and if you get into a bad situation with a bear up here, and people do get into bad situations, first of all, you've got your rifle. Then you've got your pistol. And then you've got your knife. And then you got your hands, your body. So basically what you're doing is you're trying to fight your way back to your most effective tool, which is the rifle, okay? So to have a length of that, and in contrast, here's my go bag. Show and tell here. This is a really good go bag from U.S. Peacekeepers, by the way. It's got your medical. It's got your navigation in here. I got a radio to communicate with aircraft that I carry when I'm in the field. And now this is actually a real historical item. So this was made by SOG Knives. It's the Super Buoy. Well, this was the actual, I kid you not, real. See, perspective? What they did, and actually it fits my hands better than the smaller original, but there's pretty good control on that one, okay? And basically how you can use it. But this is the actual original. My dad picked this up when we lived in Saigon from 68, Tet Offensive 68 until 1972. Okay, my dad was a contractor working in South Vietnam at the time. And he picked this up at the PX at Tan Son Nhut, which was the army base that they had. So I always tried to try and sharpen this knife, by the way. I finally found out how to do it, which is you take a file to this first, and then you start working with it with a whetstone. And the same thing with this one. You take a file to it, and you can get a razor sharp blade on this that's really easy to keep on sharpening as compared to the more chisel shape edge that you get when it comes out of the factory. But this is actually a pretty good knife, and actually I consider this a really good survival knife. You can use it to chop, you can slice, you can skin. The way you can skin with a knife like this when it's that big is you just ride up on it, okay? If you're skinning a deer, you're doing something like that, or a moose up here, or a bear, You just put your finger right there and you work your way up, and you're not going to cut open. Speaking about cutting open, I was watching Outlander last night because it was the latest episode. And please do not gut a deer in the manner that was revealed on Outlander. That's Hollywood for you. You do not gut a deer. If you put your blade and you just work it up like that, you basically are slicing all the way across the intestinal tract. And if you cut that bile, well, it's bad enough already what you've already done by doing that. Then you cut into the bile. And Mackenzie was talking about how, don't, or the lady of the land will be like all miffed. Well, yeah, doing what he was doing basically was going to do the same thing, which is to just ruin that meat. So remember, I hunt for meat. I live in Alaska because of that. I'm writing a book called The Omnivore's Satisfaction, and working on a production of a new series called The Omnivore's Satisfaction. And it's about our diet. And you may have noticed how heavy I was on Treasure Quest, especially in the first season. And a lot of it had to do with diet. And you may be dealing with the same issues. You can go to the gym, you can go work out, but if you keep on eating the crap that they keep on trying to sell everybody, and creates this kind of obesity. Come on, when we were kids, we saw fat people. We saw people who were overweight. But we didn't see it to the level and the quality that it is now. And there are some people who might say that's actually by design. You think about our population right now in contrast to what it was when I was a kid. And the opportunities that people who were older than us when we were kids had at that time, because there was more land, there was less development, and less demand on the agricultural resources, that suddenly companies, i.e. like Monsanto and other companies like that, have been able to modify foods. And if you don't see what's happening, look at people who have a main diet as that, and then go and look at people who have more of a hunter-gatherer, or people who just have their own land that they can actually grow their own stuff on. I mean, it's amazing. There was a study done with Aborigines where they took Aborigines off the modern diet, they put them back on their original diet, and they lost weight just like that. And more importantly, they actually healed their diabetes. So that's something to think about. And that's actually what my new book and this new show that I'm working on, which I think is going to go gangbusters when people watch it. It's basically us out in the field, hunting, fishing, and homesteading. I mean, that's what I do here in Alaska. I homestead. I live the life that, quote, Discovery likes to cover with the other shows, which, when we talk more about reality TV, you start to realize that perhaps it's time for some improvement in programming, nationally and internationally. So let's get into another cup of Treasure Quest. And today I'm having a colada. If you don't know what a colada is, it's a Cuban coffee that actually has the cream added into it. So, and normally it would be in a bigger cup than you'd get a normal, shot of Cuban coffee. We're talking about pilón. Otra vez por ustedes, pilón. Qué bueno, huh? So, I showed you an artifact. Now, what if I told you that the scene where we found that anchor and all of us are scuba diving and you see Jeremy on the lead on the suction nozzle, and we're bringing up debris with a come on. My first job when I got back to Alaska is I signed on as a newbie gold miner, camp medic, and camp cook, so that I could learn the gold mining business here in Alaska, basically placer mining. I worked on a real suction dredge, okay, 8-inch monster. When you watch all that water coming up, there is no force in that water to have supposedly done what was done. Basically, the producers are throwing all in the producer assistant, are throwing all this material that we supposedly gathered off the bottom, and makes it look like it's actually being sucked up. If you put your hand in front of that suction dredge as it was actually running, you could actually easily just put your hand on it and pull it off, no problem. If that was a real dredge, if that dredge was actually working properly, you would lose your hand in that dredge if it was real. Okay, so let's get off the dredge and get onto the anchor, because that was a scene with the anchor. Now, why is this so damning, and why does that piss me off? Because why am I into history? Well, let's say I'm a member of the Sons of the American Revolution, SAR. Why? Because my ancestor, David Graham, and his son, Andrew Graham, fought at the Battle of Kings Mountain in North Carolina against the English. Actually, there was only 2 officers who were English, the rest were Tories, loyal to the king. And before that, I'm actually a direct descendant of the Fuller line, which came on the Mayflower. So think about what they envisioned in terms of a country that they had hoped to create when they crossed the Atlantic. Remember, they didn't come here for just money. They didn't come. That's the big difference. It's very interesting. There's a really good book. I forget the title right now, but I will bring it up in the next chat. But it talks about the difference between North America and South America. You know, what were the intentions of the people who came across? Mexico and South, the Spanish came for gold. To the north, the Pilgrims came for religious freedom and basically freedoms. Think about that, and think about what we're losing in our country, and thinking how easily they're doing it by basically getting everybody stoned on TV. If you numb people by giving them poor programming, look at the programming we get right now. Even from PBS, if you go back to the old stuff before, let's say even Alistair Cook, that's a dramatized historical masterpiece theater. Look at Alistair Cook, you know, and him talking about the subject. He's very educated. He wants to make sure that you're educated. As compared to now, they want you to be entertained. They want you to be distracted. That's what it's all about. If you don't think that's true, look at what's happening in our country. Look about the real events that are occurring in our country right now. We have some major events related to the environment, related to the border, related to our, quote, allies, who more often than not are ending up being enemies. We have trade with countries who have taken advantage of the United States, not because they were able to do it on their own. Remember, no country has ever been invaded or has been conquered by an outside enemy. It has always occurred based on traders within a country and an inability within those people to defend what they should be defending. And if you want to destroy a country in a modern time, one of the best ways is to use the media and to teach a complacency within people to look the other way and to be distracted. And to be distracted by the fake instead of really looking at the real. So what was real on Treasure Quest that when it was ignored, it made me livid as a historian, as someone who was into archaeology, who studied archaeology in college, by the way, who is also a historian and one who writes about history. Okay, that's why my books are full of history and well-researched, and not the kind of stuff that they want you to believe. And where did that start? That started all the way back. They talked about that in that countersuit, about me talking about Vietnam, the Tet Offensive, and what really happened and how it was poorly reported. You know, I was just listening to the Conspiracy Farm, another YouTube channel that, who knows, I might actually be on soon. That would be cool. And another Discovery guy, Les Stroud. And Les Stroud talking about the dumbing down of the audience. And why is that happening? And it's a scary, scary situation. I joke around with Soylent Green. I joke around about the Omega Man, you know, but those movies are not being campy to me anymore, because I read an article in the New York Times about how our insects are disappearing. And people are always curious, what's happening? Why are these insects? I mean, before, they call it the windshield test or the windshield effect, where people are checking how many bugs get splattered on their windshield to see what the population of bugs are. And they've noticed a 60% drop And there are people who say, well, what happens when the bugs are gone? And then somebody responded, by that time, all humans will be gone. And the reason is because insects, it goes all the way down. Everything's connected in the native ways. They say, like with the Aguilala, it's mitakuya iguaste, which is to say, we are all related, okay? And that's on all living species, okay? So that means that something that can affect a mosquito in the tundra in Alaska can have an effect globally to how people will be able to get food. So think about that. I mean, we have issues up here in Alaska. I tried to run some bees. Was it not last year because too much work, but the year before, and all of them died just because of how there was just such an up and down with the environment. And that's happening around the world. And people say, oh, well, it's because of people. Well, yeah, on one level it is because of people, but it's because that's what happens. But it's how we react to that. But more importantly is what we're spraying on the ground and how that runs down. Think about it. Okay, Vietnam. For me, that's Agent Orange. Guess what? The same companies that were dropping Agent Orange, DDT, they're making other chemicals. They ain't go out of business. They're making more money than they did before. But they are poisoning this planet and the animals and insects that we rely on. And something as seemingly insignificant as a bug and the disappearance of it. I mean, I hate mosquitoes, but I deal with them because I'd rather have them around because they feed waterfowl up in the north. They feed the grayling and the Dolly Varden and baby salmon that I catch for my sustenance. So think about that. So historical record and the anchor off an island called Ilhabela on the southeast coast of Brazil. And that's the thing about it. So would you like to know how many days we actually spent on Snake Island? As I recall, it was 2 days. My big joke is that if they actually had us on Snake Island for the length of time that they try to insinuate on the show, which is about 3 months, which is what production was. First season was shot in 3 months. If we were on that island for 3 months, I and everybody on that crew and cast would not be able to talk to you because we'd be 6 feet under. That island is very dangerous. I started having some major PTS coming back as a result of being on that island because I remember what it was like to deal with landmines and IEDs back in Central America during the war. But imagine an IED or a mine that moves. I.e., remember that scene where I'm like, oh my God, this place is really dangerous. God, I mean, you can just feel the death in here. And behind me is the lighthouse, and they got me with a GoPro, and I'm holding the GoPro, and I'm walking around. When I walked from our lunch camp, our base camp that we had set up for the day, to that tower, I walked by this little tree, almost like a little mango tree. And I vividly remember there was nothing there. But when I walked back, there was a golden lancehead viper about that far away from my arm in that tree, curled up. And thank God it's the top predator on that island because it's killed everything else. And it only survives by eating the small migratory birds that fly into the area. You know, Brian, he's pretty good about describing that. Well, like I say, if we were on that island for more than a week, every one of us would have been dead because of how many snakes we ran into. If you look on Wikipedia, it says that, there's 4 per square meter. Sometimes you have none. And then there'd be another where you would have 7 of these vipers. And remember what these things do. We were told during the medical briefing that first, if you do not get medical attention within 1 hour, whatever appendage was hit by that snake was going to be cut off because the damage would have been already done. If you don't get your medical attention within 6 hours, you're dead. Okay, that's how bad those snakes are. That's the reason there's nothing happening on that island, and that's the reason the Navy prevents anybody except scientists and researchers to go and investigate a certain bio that they have on that island. So here we are. We're not on Snake Island. We're just off the coast of Ilha Bela. As I recall, that was in Saco de Sombrio, which is a small little bay. It's actually a resort area. And I got a picture. Oh, yeah, well, here. Let's see now. I've got a nice little picture of the white wedding cake in the bay when we were filming. And, yeah, right there. See that? There's our little wedding cake you remember from the show. Yeah, that thing with the holes in the bottom of the boat. Also bought for drama. Remember, it's all about drama. Not about facts. Not about making sure that you're getting an education when Discovery Channel prides itself publicly and to its stockholders as a bastion of education. That, for you conspiracy buffs, is terrifying. Think about that. What corporation will be selling itself as a last bastion of truth and historical record, yet hasn't been turning anything of truth because they're all about the scripting and all about the adventure, to the point that anchor was a real anchor. What happened was, this is the thing. It's almost like the Almighty or whatever was just saying, hey, we got to bring some truth to this, to this adventure. So while we're filming, our fixer finds out that some shrimp fishermen had dragged up an anchor from about 200 feet off the coast of this bay. And they dropped it right there in about 10 foot of water. So our producers find out about it and go, oh yeah, we got to get some footage. That's fantastic. So we're out there and we're doing the dive and everything. And I'm thinking, man, we've got something here. We'll go find some treasure. This is going to be cool. There's some actual artifacts that we found. And so we're doing the dive and everything. And then I said, what are we doing next week? Are we going to go out and follow the trail of that anchor out into deeper water? Shoot, man, I've gone down that deep. I don't have any problems with it. We can do some mixed gases and all that kind of stuff. So I'm told, no, we're done. We're gonna go shoot on another scene and another. So there I am, thinking to myself, wow, we have an actual opportunity on a show that is selling itself as a true life adventure, where we're going to find the treasure of the Trinity, or the Tesoro de Sombrio, the mysterious treasure in Brazilian Portuguese. And what happens? We are then shooting another scene where we've got fake artifacts being created by our art director, Sebastian Bale, and his wife. And it's being sent back to LA, where it's being spliced together, and Discovery is reviewing and telling, hey, whoa, we got to change this a little bit because there's not enough. We need a little bit more drama, coming out of this relationship between, let's say, Cork and Megan, and Cork and Cappy, or like Cappy and Brian. We got to get all that going. And you're thinking to yourself, this is, I recall, was about that time, about 2 weeks into it, I went over to Keith and I went, hey, you do realize we will never, ever find treasure on this show? And Cappy looked back at me and said, just kind of like grinned and went. So on that note, hey, if you haven't picked up a copy, go pick up a copy. Tell your friends, Christmas is coming. This is going to be a wild read. This is just the tip of the iceberg. And I'll talk to you tomorrow. Hope you had a great weekend.